Welcome to Hidden Ties, where every story hides a deeper truth. It was just another birthday party, my niece's to be exact. But when she grabbed my hand and begged me not to leave her there, I had no idea it would lead me to the moment that would change everything. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. I'm Rosie. I'm 52 years old, living in a small town in the Midwest. I work as a part-time bookkeeper and help out at a local thrift store a couple of days a week. I've never been one for parties or any of the hoopla that goes along with them, honestly. My life's pretty simple, and that's the way I like it. Nothing fancy, just me, my dog, and my routines. The closest I get to excitement is flipping through old books or making up new recipes with whatever's in the fridge. It was the end of June when my niece's birthday party rolled around. Her name's Lily. She's 9, big blue eyes, a smile like sunshine, and always way too much energy. I hadn't planned to stay long, of course. The last thing I wanted was to be caught up in the whirlwind of balloons, games, and a bunch of kids running around like maniacs. But when I showed up at her mom's house, Lily practically attacked me with a hug, tugging at my sleeve. "Aunt Rosie, you came!" she squealed, her face lighting up like a Christmas tree. I gave her a quick hug back, trying to smile through the awkwardness. I wasn't great at this sort of thing. "Of course, sweetheart, I wouldn't miss it," I said, trying to sound more enthusiastic than I felt. But when I tried to leave a little while later, Lily grabbed my hand. "Aunt Rosie, please don't go. Stay with me. I don't want to be alone." Her eyes were wide, pleading with me. I didn't think much of it at first. Kids said things like that all the time, right? But there was something in her tone, a kind of desperation that caught me off guard. I paused. "Come on, you'll be fine," I said softly, bending down to her level. "It's just a party, and your friends are here, remember?" But Lily shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't want them. I want you. Please don't leave me here." I froze for a second, caught off guard. There was no mistaking the fear in her voice. It wasn't like her at all. I glanced around, but everyone was too caught up in their own little worlds. Lily's mom was in the kitchen talking to a neighbor. Her dad was busy setting up a game for the kids. Nobody seemed to notice Lily's distress. It made my stomach knot, and before I could even think about it, I said, all right, I'll stay. But only for a little while." She beamed, clinging to my side as we walked inside the house, where the party was in full swing. The music blared in the background, the sound of kids laughing and shouting filling the air. But something about the way Lily clung to me made me uneasy. As we made our way through the house, I noticed something strange. The atmosphere felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but there was a heaviness in the air, like something was hiding beneath the surface. Lily led me to the playroom in the back of the house, a small, cozy space filled with toys and stuffed animals. I could tell she was trying to act casual, but there was something in her eyes that spoke volumes. "Aunt Rosie, can you stay with me here?" she asked, her voice small. I nodded. "Of course, you don't have to ask." But as I sat down next to her, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I didn't know why, but I felt like something wasn't right. It wasn't until a few minutes later, when I looked around the room, that I saw it. At first, it seemed like just another toy, a stuffed animal shoved in the corner of the room. But there was something about it that caught my attention, a weird, ominous energy that made the air feel thicker. I walked over to it, hesitating for just a second. The closer I got, the more I realized it wasn't just a toy. It was a bear, an old one, with tattered fur and a worn-out look. But what really sent a chill down my spine were the eyes. They weren't like any toy I'd ever seen. They were glassy, like they were staring right through me. Something about them felt wrong, almost like they were watching me. Before I could turn away, I felt Lily tug on my sleeve again. "Aunt Rosie," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please don't touch that bear. It's bad luck." I froze. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Lily didn't answer right away. She just looked at me with those big blue eyes of hers, full of fear. It's bad luck. Don't touch it. It brings bad things. I couldn't help but laugh a little, trying to lighten the mood. Oh, sweetie, it's just a toy. There's no such thing as bad luck. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I tried to brush off the strange feeling in the air, but Lily wasn't letting go of my sleeve, her grip tightening every time I glanced back at that bear. I could feel her pulse in the way her hand trembled against my arm, but I didn't understand. How could a stuffed animal, something so simple, freak her out like this? Aunt Rosie, I'm serious. It's not a toy, not really. I've seen things with that bear, she mumbled, barely audible. I sat back on the floor, crossing my arms. This was getting a little more than I could handle. I could feel my patience slipping away, but the kid was scared, and I knew I had to handle this carefully. I don't know what's going on here, Lily, but we're going to be okay, okay? I said softly, leaning in to look her in the eyes. Her lips quivered before she gave a faint nod, but it wasn't enough to settle me. I glanced back at the bear again, its eyes still gleaming like it was waiting for me to make a move. I swallowed hard, pulling myself away from the edge of the room and pushing myself up to my feet. Maybe I'd give her some space. We didn't need to make a bigger deal out of this. Why don't you go play with the other kids? I suggested. I'll keep an eye on you, okay? Lily stared at me for a second, her face torn between wanting to stay close and not wanting to look weak in front of the other kids. Then she sighed, clearly defeated. All right, she said, her voice small again, but as she turned to leave, she looked back one last time, her eyes locking onto mine. Promise me you won't touch it. I raised an eyebrow, suddenly realizing that this wasn't just some childish superstition. There was a deeper story behind this, one I needed to figure out. But Lily had already walked off, leaving me alone in the room with the bear. I stood there for a moment, caught between curiosity and that unnerving feeling I couldn't shake. Maybe Lily was just scared. Maybe it was just her imagination running wild. I didn't know, but I felt like I couldn't ignore her warning. But then, in a moment of strange compulsion, I reached down toward the bear. The second my fingers brushed against its worn, rough fur, I felt it, a sharp jolt like an electric shock. I jerked my hand back, startled, heart racing. What the hell? I muttered under my breath. The room seemed quieter now. The sound of children's laughter, the clinking of party games, it all seemed muffled, distant. My hands were shaking as I stared at the bear. It was just a toy, but there was something undeniably wrong with it. Before I could even gather my thoughts, I heard Lily's voice from the other side of the room. Don't touch it, Aunt Rosie. I told you, she yelled, sounding more desperate now. You don't understand. I turned to look at her, but she wasn't just scared anymore. There was anger in her eyes, too. Something deep, like she had been holding it in for too long. Her voice cracked as she continued, Please, you're making it worse. Lily, stop. What's going on? I demanded, my own frustration bubbling up now. I wasn't used to being in the dark. I wasn't used to being treated like I didn't understand. She stood there, frozen in place, her lips trembling. For a moment, there was just silence. But then a voice broke the stillness. It wasn't Lily's. Well, looks like Aunt Rosie is getting curious, huh? The voice came from behind me, smooth and casual, as if it belonged in the room, but I hadn't seen anyone there. I whipped around, startled, my heart leaping into my throat. Standing in the doorway was a man I'd never seen before, tall, with messy black hair and an almost too perfect smile. He looked to be in his early 30s, but there was something off about him. I couldn't quite place it. Who are you? I asked, trying to hide the unease in my voice. He chuckled softly, a sound that sent a chill down my spine. The name's Jake. I'm a friend of Lily's, and you must be Rosie. I stared at him for a moment. A friend? How long have you known her? His smile didn't fade. Long enough. I felt a wave of suspicion wash over me. Something wasn't right about him. It was more than just his sudden appearance. It was the way he carried himself, like he already knew what I was going to do next. "Lily, is this your friend?" I asked, keeping my eyes on him but never breaking my gaze from her. Lily didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked from me to Jake, her face pale and anxious. "He's not my friend, Aunt Rosie," she whispered. "He's the one who brings bad things." Jake didn't look offended, though. He just stepped closer, slowly. "Oh, Lily, you're so dramatic." "She doesn't understand, sweetie," he said, walking past her as if she weren't even there. "You're just making things harder for her. Let's not play games." His voice was so calm, so soothing, but it didn't make me feel any better. I had the distinct impression that Jake was far more dangerous than anyone in that room realized. The feeling was so strong I could taste it on the back of my tongue. Lily's breathing quickened. "You, please don't. Don't let him hurt me." I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't just some weird party, some strange misunderstanding. There was something far more sinister going on here. And no matter how hard I tried to deny it, I knew I wasn't leaving that room without figuring out what Jake had to do with that bear and what Lily was so afraid of. The silence between us felt heavy. Lily, her eyes wide with terror, refused to take her gaze off Jake, who was now casually leaning against the door frame, his arms folded as though he were just waiting for the right moment to speak. My stomach twisted in knots. This wasn't just a harmless misunderstanding. No, this felt like something much darker was at play. The way Lily reacted, her obvious fear, told me she wasn't exaggerating. "Lily, what's going on? Who is he?" I pressed again, my voice sharp, as I tried to keep the tension from escalating. I turned to Jake, my eyes narrowing. "What do you want with her?" Jake gave a lazy smile, but it was cold, distant. He didn't seem to be rattled in the slightest. In fact, he almost looked entertained by my confusion. "Rosie," he said, leaning back further into the frame of the door, "you really think you can just come in here and start making demands? This isn't your place." "And Lily?" He turned to her, his voice dropping a little. "She knows exactly what's going on. Don't you, sweetheart?" Lily flinched, stepping back a little, but she didn't say anything more. My heart was beating so hard I could almost hear it in my ears. This wasn't how I'd imagined my niece's birthday playing out, and I certainly hadn't thought I'd be in a situation like this. I could feel the hairs on my neck stand up as I turned to Lily again. "Lily, please, talk to me. What does he mean? What's going on with that bear?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Aunt Rosie, I didn't want you to know, but now it's too late." Jake pushed himself off the doorframe and took a couple of slow steps into the room. "I think it's time for you to hear the truth, don't you, Lily?" Lily shook her head rapidly. "No, please don't." But Jake wasn't listening. He was too busy enjoying the moment, his smile twisting into something darker as he reached down and picked up the stuffed bear from the corner, holding it out in front of him like it was some sort of prize. "You see, Rosie, this bear, it's not just some toy. It's a vessel." His eyes glittered with an unsettling gleam. "A vessel for certain things you wouldn't understand." I took a step back, my pulse quickening. A vessel? For what? Jake's eyes never left me. For power, control, fear. And when it's used right, it can make people do whatever you want, if you have the right kind of energy. I couldn't even process what he was saying. It felt too surreal, like I had stepped into some strange horror story. But Lily's frantic gaze told me there was truth in his words, something beyond the surface that I couldn't yet comprehend. "I don't believe you," I managed to spit out, but I felt the shakiness in my voice. "This is insane. It's just a damn stuffed animal." Lily, on the other hand, seemed to crumble under the weight of the situation. "It's not, Aunt Rosie. It's not just a toy. He used it on me, and he used it on my mom, too. I saw him do it when I was little. That's why they keep moving us. He's the reason why we never stay in one place too long." Everything around me seemed to stop as Lily's words sank in. The air grew thicker, heavier. I felt like I was suffocating, like I had walked into a nightmare I couldn't escape from. Jake laughed, the sound harsh and hollow. That's right, Lily, you understand better than she does. He turned to me, his smile widening. Your niece is much more insightful than you give her credit for. Too bad she's learned too much already. I was reeling, my mind trying to piece together everything Lily had just said, but it wasn't adding up. It didn't make sense. Why had her family never told me anything about this? And why did this man, Jake, have so much control over her? You're lying, I finally managed, feeling a surge of adrenaline. I was no longer scared. The anger, the frustration, the disbelief, it all welled up inside of me. What's your game, huh? What do you want with us? Jake stepped closer, placing the bear back down on the floor as he locked eyes with me. His gaze was so cold it felt like he was looking straight through me. I'm not lying, Rosie. You're just not ready to see it yet. But you will. Soon enough. I felt a chill run through me as I glanced at Lily. She was visibly shaking now, her body tense. I could see the fight in her eyes, though. She was holding on, trying to stay strong despite everything happening around her. Lily, I whispered, crouching down to her level. You're not alone. Whatever this is, we'll get through it together, okay? But she shook her head again, tears streaming down her cheeks. You can't. You don't understand. He's too powerful. You can't stop him. No one can. Suddenly, Jake clapped his hands together, snapping me back into the present. That's enough, Lily, he said, his tone suddenly harsh. We don't need to waste any more time with this nonsense. You've already sealed your fate by bringing her here. He turned his gaze to me. And now, you're involved, Rosie. That's the problem with curiosity. It gets you in trouble. I stepped back, my mind racing. What had I gotten myself into? How could I have known this innocent-sounding birthday party would spiral into something so dark and twisted? Tell me what you want, I demanded, my voice firm now. There was no turning back. What do you want from us? Jake tilted his head as if considering the question. What I want? Oh, that's easy. I want control. And with Lily, I'll have it. With you, well, you'll just be an obstacle. He grinned, though it wasn't a smile, more like a predator sizing up his prey. Lily's voice barely rose above a whisper, but I heard it loud and clear. Aunt Rosie, you have to leave. Please. You don't know what you're up against. He's been doing this for years. But before I could respond, the lights flickered, a sudden eerie crackle of static buzzing through the room. My heart jumped into my throat, and I couldn't help but feel a creeping fear wash over me. There was no going back now, not after everything I'd just heard. This wasn't just about a toy or some strange man. It was about power and control, and something much darker than I was prepared to understand. I don't know what I was expecting after the lights flickered, but it wasn't the dead silence that followed. The static buzzed out of the speakers in the room, leaving behind an unnatural stillness. Even the kids outside, who had been playing and laughing just moments before, seemed to have fallen into a quiet trance. I could feel the air pressing down on me, heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. Jake stood there, unbothered by the strange moment we were all in, still as calm as ever. He wasn't sweating, he wasn't even blinking much. His eyes, though, were locked on me, focused, unblinking. There was something predatory about his stare that made my skin crawl. You think you can just walk away from this, don't you, Rosie? He asked softly, as if the question was almost an afterthought. But there was menace there, hidden under the smooth, calm voice. Lily grabbed my sleeve, her hand tight and almost desperate. She looked up at me, eyes wide with terror. Aunt Rosie, please, don't make it worse. You're in danger and you don't even realize it. He's not human. He's not what he seems. I glanced down at Lily, my heart breaking as I saw the raw fear in her eyes. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to be the strong one for her. But what was I supposed to do with a man who was this terrifying? What was I supposed to do with a stuffed bear that could apparently possess this kind of power? I don't believe you, I said again, even though my voice wavered more than I wanted it to. This doesn't make sense. You're trying to mess with me, trying to manipulate us. but I'm not going to let you." Jake didn't flinch. His eyes remained locked on mine, his smirk stretching wider. "You still don't get it, do you?" he muttered. "It's not manipulation, Rosie. It's control. It's what I do, and you're already involved. You've already touched the bear." His eyes dropped to my hand, which was still slightly trembling from when I'd made the mistake of brushing against it. "Once you do that, there's no turning back. You're already in my game." I could feel the weight of his words pressing on me. My mind was racing, trying to process all of this. Was it possible that everything he was saying was true? No, it couldn't be. It had to be some sick game, right? But then why did Lily look so scared? Why did everything feel so wrong? "You're wrong," I said, trying to hold on to any sense of normalcy, any shred of logic. "I'm leaving. I'm taking Lily and I'm getting out of here. You can't stop me." But as I took a step toward the door, I felt it. The air shifting. It wasn't just the lights flickering this time. The temperature in the room dropped. I felt a coldness seep through my skin, right to my bones. My breath hitched in my throat as the bear seemed to come alive. It was just a toy, but the presence around it felt like something else, something ancient, something dangerous. "No, Rosie," Jake said softly, his voice barely a whisper, but it cut through the room with an unsettling certainty. "You can't leave, not until I'm done with you." I didn't think. I didn't know what else to do except move forward. I reached for the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. I twisted it harder, my heart now pounding in my chest. It was locked. I jerked on it again, panic rising in my throat. "Lily," I gasped, my voice shaking. "Do you have a key? Please, please tell me you have a key." Lily didn't respond immediately. She was still clutching my arm, her fingers digging into my skin as she stared at the door, the terror in her eyes only growing by the second. I felt her tug at my sleeve, pulling me away from the door, her grip desperate. "Don't open it, Aunt Rosie," she cried out, her voice rising. "You don't understand what's behind it." I looked at her, confused and terrified, but before I could ask another question, the room seemed to shift again. This time, I could feel it, like the very walls were pressing in on me. The bear, still sitting innocently on the floor, now felt like it was watching me, waiting for me to make the wrong move. And then, as if responding to my thoughts, I heard the door creak. Slowly and with an eerie groan, it started to open on its own. My breath caught in my throat, and before I could even think, Jake's voice sliced through the air again, low and dangerous. "It's too late. There's no turning back now, Rosie." I turned toward him, panic gripping me. "What do you want from us?" "I told you already," Jake said, his smile gone now. "I want control. You're just a piece in the game. Lily is already mine, but now I need you to understand what happens when you try to fight me." Suddenly, everything in the room felt impossibly heavy. The walls seemed to close in even further, and the coldness was suffocating. My thoughts were racing, but I couldn't think clearly. This wasn't normal. None of this was normal. Lily's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. "Aunt Rosie, don't make him angry. You don't know what he'll do. He'll take us, take me, he'll take everything." My heart slammed against my ribs, and I could feel the blood rushing in my ears. This wasn't some game. This wasn't a joke. This was real. And somehow, some way, I had just become part of something far bigger and darker than I could have ever imagined. Before I could react, before I could even process what was happening, the bear moved. I swear I saw it shift. It wasn't just a trick of the light or my mind playing games. The bear shifted, slowly, deliberately, and then, without warning, it turned its head to look at me. That was it. My mind snapped. I don't know what I expected in that moment. Maybe a shift in the air, a moment of clarity where I could figure out what the hell was happening. But nothing prepared me for the cold, suffocating dread that wrapped around me as I watched that damn bear turn its head to face me. I stumbled back, my breath ragged, eyes wide. I couldn't tear my gaze away. The plush fur, the button eyes, the tiny stitched smile. none of it seemed innocent anymore. It was all wrong somehow. It was as if the bear had crossed some kind of invisible line between the mundane and the unimaginable. Lily screamed. I don't think she even knew she was doing it. Her voice shrill, high-pitched, desperate. It's him. It's him inside the bear, Aunt Rosie. He's been inside it all along. Jake chuckled softly, his tone the same detached calmness he'd had since walking into the room. Oh, Lily, you really don't know when to stop, do you? He glanced over at me, the smirk back in place. But I'm not here to argue about the details. We both know you're in this now. It's too late. I shook my head, desperately trying to make sense of the words coming out of his mouth, but they were just falling on deaf ears. I could feel my body tense, my heart racing as my thoughts jumbled together. I needed to get out. I needed to leave. But the door, the only exit, was still locked. The bear's head didn't just turn. It shifted toward me with a deliberate, unnerving motion, its stitched eyes seeming to narrow. It felt like it was staring right through me, watching my every move, waiting for me to make my next mistake. The temperature in the room dropped again, and a cold, biting wind swept through the space. I could see my breath now, and I wasn't sure if it was because of the fear or because of whatever this thing, this presence, was doing to the air. Aunt Rosie, Lily's voice came again, trembling. You have to fight back. He's stronger than you think. He can make you do things, make you say things you don't mean. I wanted to say something, wanted to assure her that I wasn't going to let this happen, but the words stuck in my throat. The truth was, I didn't know how to fight against something like this. I'd seen horror movies, read books, but none of that prepared me for whatever this was. Jake's smile widened, sensing my hesitation. You can't fight it. No one can. That's what happens when you deal with things you don't understand. He stepped forward, his shoes clicking softly against the hardwood floor. But you're not entirely useless, Rosie. Not yet. There's still time for you to accept your place in this. I swallowed hard, staring at him, trying to force some rational thought into my mind. But nothing was making sense. It was like my body wasn't responding to my brain's commands. Fear was freezing me in place. But Lily, she needed me. I couldn't just stand there and let her suffer. Suddenly I felt something shift, a surge of energy, like a small spark igniting in my chest. It wasn't the warmth I expected. It was more like a fire, cold and fierce, growing in the pit of my stomach. I glanced down at the bear once again, my eyes narrowing as I focused on it. I could almost feel its malevolent force. I don't care who you are, I finally said, my voice stronger now, shaking with anger. You can't have us. Jake's expression faltered for just a split second, just enough for me to notice. He didn't expect that, but it was enough to make him pause. You still don't get it, Rosie, he said, his voice tinged with frustration. You think you can just walk out of this? You think you can just leave? I ignored him, focusing entirely on Lily. Her face was pale, and I could see the terror in her eyes. She was ready to break. She'd already seen too much. And me? I wasn't going to let her face this alone. I grabbed her hand, squeezing it tightly. Lily, listen to me. We're going to get out of here. We're going to find a way. My voice cracked, but I pushed through it. Stay close to me. No matter what happens, we stick together. But before Lily could respond, the air in the room changed again, quicker this time. A low, guttural sound began to hum from the corners of the room, vibrating the floor beneath us. The lights flickered, and I swear I could see the shadows moving, shifting, bending as though they were alive. Lily pulled away from me, her face stricken with horror. He's here! He's coming! What are you talking about? I asked, panic creeping back into my voice. And then I saw it. From the corner of the room, near the window, something began to form. It wasn't human. It was a shape, shifting, twisting, like a shadow that couldn't quite decide what it wanted to be. It loomed tall and dark, its form indistinct, but undeniably ominous. The temperature dropped even more, and I could see Lily shiver violently as she clung to my side. "Get ready, Rosie," Jake's voice rang out, smooth and calm again. "It's over now." In that moment, I knew something was about to break, and I had to act fast. I turned toward the window, my mind scrambling for an idea. There had to be another way out. There had to be a way to escape. But the shadow was already coming toward us, stretching unnaturally long, twisting in ways that didn't make sense. My pulse hammered in my ears, but I forced myself to think. The door, Jake was blocking the only exit. And whatever that thing was, whatever it had become, it wasn't something I could fight. But there was one thing I could do. "Lily," I whispered urgently, "stay behind me. Now." She didn't argue. I grabbed her arm and tugged her toward the window, my heart thumping in my chest as I pulled at the latch. The cold air from outside rushed into the room as the window cracked open. The thing, the shadow, was getting closer. With one final tug, the window flung open wide, and I shoved Lily through first. She stumbled, but I caught her just before she fell to the ground outside. "Go!" I hissed. "Run!" But as Lily bolted into the yard, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, a coldness like a vice gripping my heart. The shadow was right behind me. I didn't know how long I had, how much longer I could run, or how far I could get before that thing caught up to me. But as soon as Lily was outside, I knew my job wasn't finished. I had to make sure she was safe. I had to make sure we both made it out of this nightmare. The cold gripped me harder as I pushed myself through the window, barely catching my breath as I landed on the grass outside. The night air cut into my skin, but I didn't stop to think about it. I turned to face Lily, who was already scrambling away from the house, her small frame silhouetted by the dim porch light. She was running, but she was stumbling. She couldn't see where she was going, her eyes still wide with terror. "Lily!" I screamed, urgency cracking my voice. "Lily, don't stop. Keep going." She didn't hesitate. She ran faster, her feet kicking up dirt as she bolted down the side of the yard. But then I heard it, the sound of something following us, closer now. The shadow had come through the window too, and it was moving swiftly, impossibly fast. Its shape distorted as it grew closer, its long, twisting arms reaching toward us. The thing was here. It was going to catch us. I could feel my breath catching in my throat. My legs were burning, but I forced myself to move faster. I could hear Lily's uneven breathing just ahead, her panic thick in the air. I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to. I just kept running, kept pushing myself to reach her. But it wasn't enough. The shadow was already too close, and I could feel it like a dark presence creeping into my skin, invading my every breath. It was suffocating, crushing everything around me. I had to do something. I had to stop it. But how? How could I possibly fight something like this? Then it hit me. The bear. I stopped in my tracks, my heart hammering as I glanced over my shoulder. The thing was still coming, still gaining on us. But the bear, I realized, was more than just a toy. It was the key. It was the thing that had brought all of this down on us. And if I could somehow get rid of it, destroy it, I could stop this nightmare from continuing. "Lily!" I yelled, but my voice was already hoarse, barely more than a rasp. "We need to go back. We need to destroy the bear." Lily looked back at me in confusion, her face twisted with fear. "What? The bear? Aunt Rosie, no, it's—" But before she could finish, the shadow reached out, grabbing for her. I didn't think. I just reacted, sprinting toward her and pulling her away from the dark tendrils that were now reaching for her like claws. My hands grasped her shoulders, yanking her to the side, and I heard the thing scream, a sound that was less human, more like a horrific wail from the depths of some twisted underworld. I didn't look back. There was no time. We had to stop this. Now. Without saying another word, I grabbed Lily's hand and dragged her toward the house again. She was breathing heavily now, her legs unsteady as we ran, but I couldn't let her stop. I couldn't let her give up. When we reached the window, I didn't hesitate. I crawled back inside, pulling Lily in behind me, ignoring the icy air biting at my skin. The bear was still sitting there, its eyes glinting as if it knew exactly what I was thinking. "Do you have it?" I asked, my voice a ragged whisper as I tried to steady my shaking hands. I wasn't sure if I was asking Lily or if I was just talking to myself. Either way, we had to destroy it. Lily nodded, her face pale but determined. "I have it. I can do it. We can stop it. We just have to be strong." I grabbed the bear from its perch on the floor. It was heavier than I expected, its stitches tight and almost unnatural, like it had been waiting for this moment. But I couldn't think about that now. I had to focus. "We need to burn it," I said, my voice rough. "We need to make sure it's gone." I turned to Lily. "Can you do it? I don't care how. Just destroy it, Lily." Without another word, she nodded again and grabbed the bear from my hands, holding it tightly to her chest. The thing felt almost alive in her arms, its limbs stiff and unyielding. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of our quickening breath. "Please, let this be the end." The shadow outside was still moving, creeping toward us like a dark cloud. I could feel the coldness surrounding the room again, but this time, it didn't matter. This time, I knew what I had to do. Lily stepped forward, determination written on her face. With one sharp movement, she placed the bear on the ground. It was like the world around us went still for just a second, the silence suffocating. And then, with a voice that was filled with equal parts fear and resolve, she said, "This ends now." Lily reached into the pocket of her jacket and pulled out a match. She struck it against the side of the wall, and a small flame flickered to life in her hand. I saw the firelight reflect in her eyes, bright, fierce, and full of purpose. Without hesitation, she lowered the match to the bear. For a moment, nothing happened. The bear just sat there, its stitched smile staring up at us, as if mocking us for thinking we could destroy it. But then, with an ear-splitting crack, the bear ignited. The fire spread like a violent wave across its body, the cotton stuffing quickly turning black as the flames licked higher and higher. I pulled Lily back, my heart hammering in my chest. But even as I watched the bear burn, I could feel it, the presence, the weight, the thing that had been following us, that had been waiting to consume us. It didn't go away, the shadow didn't vanish. Instead, I felt something shift, something in the very fabric of the air around us. But then I realized, the bear wasn't just a toy. The bear had been him, the thing that had been controlling him, holding him back. And as the flames consumed it, the shadow began to dissolve as well, its form flickering and shrinking until all that was left was a dark stain on the floor. The room went quiet. Lily and I stood there, panting, staring at the spot where the bear had burned away to nothing. It was over. But even in the quiet, I knew, we knew, that this moment wasn't just the end. It was the beginning of something else, something deeper, something that would stay with us, always. Before I could say anything else, Lily turned to me, her voice soft but resolute. "Aunt Rosie, we're safe now. We're free." I nodded, a small tear slipping down my cheek. It was done. It was over. But now we had to rebuild. I grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the door. There was nothing left in that house for us. It was time to leave it all behind. And as we stepped outside into the quiet night, I couldn't help but wonder, how many others had fallen into this trap? How many others had faced what we just did and never made it out? Before I could answer my own question, I glanced at Lily. We were free now, but we couldn't forget.